You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming out and listening to The Real Short Box. My name is Donald.
My name is Dr. Kevin.
And I am Darwin.
Darwin. Okay. Well, we got Darwin here. Today we're going to be talking...
problem.
Yeah, well, that happens. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10, each of our top 10 DC villains. Ooh, we've already done the heroes. Now's the villains.
Yes, sir.
This is some good stuff, guys. I'm excited. Feel these nipples.
Cue disaster sound effect.
Yeah,
here.
they're popping out of your shirt, sir. That's pretty that's disturbing.
Disaster sound effect? Now. Wow.
What a boom that was.
That was disastrous.
Yes.
I was scared for a second.
Yeah, I was about to evacuate the building.
I was picturing the mushroom cloud in my head.
Man,
It does happen.
man, you got problems, man.
What? What'd I do?
Your chest.
I'll put my shirt back on. Sorry.
Well,
Jeez.
and I know we all want to get right into this, but like I did at the last podcast, before Kevin starts us off here, I want to ask you, Kevin and Donald, were there any surprise villains that you left off your list that might, when by surprise I mean might surprise our listeners?
A couple.
Yeah.
Like?
You want me to say it already?
Yeah, just who you left off.
Yeah.
Okay, I left off Ra's al Ghul.
Donald?
Sinestro. That was a tough one for me, but he's off the list.
That's, wow. For me, I'm going to go with Maxwell Lord.
Oh my
Ooh,
goodness.
that's another good one.
That's tough because I have a personal attachment to Maxwell Lord.
You sure
Yes.
do.
But this is a tough list. It's a tough
you have a
business.
personal relationship with Maxwell Lord.
I do. It's a tough business,
Did.
guys.
One would say he was in him.
In more ways than one.
So, Kevin, you're number 10.
My number 10, gentlemen, is Superboy Prime.
Ooh, so low on the list.
I know.
Oh, that's like your bread and butter.
Well, he's one of them, but you know what? He's someone, after all these DC villains, I figured I'd put him at 10 because he's kind of new to me in many respects. I really didn't read him until I started reading about Crisis on Infinite Earths and then Infinite Crisis. And he wore on me. I started liking him. I started loving him.
Gotcha.
Because he started out as a sweet little boy. And then after the Crisis on Infinite Earths and him and then the Superman from, I think it was Earth 2, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And that old ass Wonder Woman and all those other characters, they're taken away. And then when they come back in the Infinite Crisis storyline, he's different. He's a little older and he snaps. And he hurts someone and he kind of feels bad about it. Oh no, what did I do? And then he does something again. And then again. And after a while, he starts to enjoy it.
Ooh.
And in a lower brow show, I would mention Earth 2 starring Antonio Sabato Jr.
Ah, there you go.
Oof.
Now, what's cool about Superboy Prime is that in the regular DC, actually, I felt, well, what Earth is it? Earth 1 that they're in? That we usually, the books that we're usually reading and most of the stories take place in?
Earth 2. That was on NBC, I believe.
Antonio Sabato Jr. We just covered this.
Yep.
Good luck finding that one on DVD. Prospecting.
You'll find it one day.
Oh, I believe you could find it probably quite easy.
But in the regular DC timeline, his powers are pretty cool because he's more powerful than the Superman that we know. Because he doesn't have any vulnerability to magic, and kryptonite does not affect him. And the reason why kryptonite doesn't affect him is because in his Earth Prime, or his Krypton Prime, it didn't blow up. Instead, it just got absorbed into a sun. So you didn't have shards of the planet Krypton flying over the
Oh,
place.
that makes sense. Okay.
But somehow he's number 10 on your list.
Wow.
I know.
Number 10.
I admit he probably should be higher. But
Powerful number 10.
Embarrassing.
He's powerful. So, well, you know what? This goes to show you that I'm not playing around with my top 10.
No, you are not. Donald, who's at your number 10?
My number 10 is kind of less of an individual, more of a group. Now, I don't know if you guys know, I created a web series called The Blue Beetle Ted Cord Returns.
You don't say.
Yeah, I don't say. I do say. And in this series, we had a character called the Mad Man, and that character was played by Matthew Brenner.
Yes.
And
Honorable man.
he did a great job as the character. Basically, it was taking one of the characters, Farley, out of the group and having him with his individual powers. So originally they were called the Mad Men, And what these guys were is they were a gang. Farley Fleeter was the lead of it. The leader of it. He transformed his gang into a group of supervillains. The gang, and here's how he did it. The gang donned wigs, face paint, and multicolored costumes and started robbing banks. They looked like a bunch of freaking clowns. I mean, it was ridiculous. They were like one of the main villains of the Blue Beetle, Ted Kord. So you can see that Ted didn't really have a lot of villains, which is why I did what I did with the character and made him more like a mob boss with psychic powers, telekinesis kind of abilities.
Makes sense.
Which is what Farley later developed in the comic books. He actually did develop these types of powers. But before that, he didn't really have much to go on, that many powers. He did get, he was a victim of the Joker's venom later on in Gotham City. And then the Blue Beetle and Robin had to go and catch him together. So there was that did happen. But before that, they were just a bunch of like crazy gang members in wigs and costumes and stuff. And I just like the idea of these characters progressively going from a silly joke into one of the characters, the leader, basically becoming more and more powerful as you went along and became less of a joke. So that to me is kind of like a redemption of a character. My favorite character in Lord of the Rings is Boromir, and that's because of his redemptive qualities.
Sure, it's not because of Sean Bean.
That's a big part of it, but he's tempted to use what he can, everything he can in his ability to try to take the ring, and take the power of the ring for himself. But in the end does the right thing. Spoiler alert, people, sorry. But in the end, he does the right thing and is able to protect, or tries to protect, the hobbits from the fighting Uruk-hai. So in that way, I kin Farley to that kind of thing as far as like a redemptive quality as a bad guy, if that makes sense. Not doing good, but being a bad guy, redeeming himself by gaining these powers and then using these powers for more evil. It happened to a lot of them in that, what was it, where Necron, I think, or Neron, or whatever came. Underworld Unleashed or something like that is what they did for DC. And he gave a lot of C-level DC villains A-level powers. So kind of like in that vein, but it didn't happen during that time. But that will be probably the first and only Blue Beetle villain, besides Maxwell Lord, actually, which you mentioned earlier, that will be in this in this list for anyone. Yeah, and definitely my number 10. It's a hard 10. There's so many other guys I could have put on the list.
I agree.
But I thought this is such a different dynamic and in such a different aspect of a not very well-known hero and not very well-known villains. If you ever want to take a peek, you go to Blue Beetle number 3. Both in 1967 and in the 80s during the DC run. In the 60s, it was during the Charlton run. Mm-hmm. So you can see the Madmen on the cover and what they look like. They're very colorful, very kind of cool-looking characters, but a joke nonetheless.
All right. Darren, who is your number 10?
Number 10, right out of the gates, I'm going to come in with Vandal Savage.
Well.
Better known as Vandar Adg. What ADG Adg? It's whatever. It's one of those. Debuted in Green Lantern number 10, December 1943. Vandal is an enhanced Cro-Magnon, which is interesting, I thought. He is immortal, which unfortunately when you're dealing with, in my opinion, really cool DC villains, a lot of them have tremendous powers to a point that you can't even comprehend.
That's true.
You even wonder how they can make interesting stories at times with the fact they're invulnerable in so many ways. Can regenerate. The term I use a lot, generally superhuman, which is just a generic way of saying has super everything. Genius, and has been schooled in a millennia of history, warfare, science, etc. He's kind of like Highlander, for those of you who are of my generation. And I got to tell you, I love these kinds of characters. These characters that literally transcend through history. Like Vandal Savage was essentially born in, as far as story concerned, about 50,000 BC, and he was bathed in radiation from a meteor. And I'm just like, this guy has seen, obviously, at this point, pretty much like 52,000 years of life. and you can at any point be in a Vandal Savage story, and we're going to go back to the French Revolution. We're going to go back to the Crusades. And I just think that that's really cool, and it really expands the DC universe in a way that, you know, other characters don't necessarily do.
I agree. He's a very good character, and very one that I would definitely put on my list if I had a top 10 DC list of villains.
You're funny.
You know what? What makes us such a great podcast, in my humble opinion, not to pat us on the back too hard, is do you see how much detail we went into with number 10?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We're going to be moving now to number 9. And Kevin, you're on the spot, baby.
All right. My number 9, Donald already mentioned this person, or I don't know if you can call him a person, but an entity, Necron.
Ooh la la. Wow. How did I know?
The Lord of the Unliving, who draws his powers from the souls and spirits that have died. And he basically runs almost like a nether realm, kind of like a in-between zone between heaven and hell.
Like Shang Tsung.
Yeah, like Shang Tsung, like a limbo.
Mm-hmm.
And he started out he debuted in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #2 back in June of 1981. And what's interesting about him is he teamed up with Krona, who was a former Guardian who kind of lost it, to invade the DC universe. And their plan was to kill off the Guardians so he can take their energy so he can absorb it and then, take over the universe. That kind of thing. I want to take over everything. But his main thing was during the Blackest Night and the creation of the Black Lantern Corps with all those Black Lantern rings, resurrecting even your boy, Mr. Ted Kord, at one point.
Yep.
So he is basically DC's version of death. You really can't kill him. He's kind of like a force of nature, so to speak. All you can do is just kind of contain him, and that's what the Green Lantern Corps in particular has had to do over the years. But there's not much personality to him, I'll admit that, but I kind of like him for the trouble he brings.
He created, like Jeff Johns did, by bringing this character back, this very unknown character, he created one of the most popular, if not the most popular storylines in Green Lantern history.
Yes.
I mean, this was huge, guys. Yep. This was what spurred the idea of the movie for DC Comics. This is why we have a movie of Green Lantern, because of the popularity and sales of the Green Lantern book at the time. It created, 3 spin-offs based, or 2 extra at least, if not 3 spin-offs of the Green Lantern title. So you had 4 to 5 Green Lantern-based books coming out in a month.
That's right.
Which is insane. That you hadn't seen that since...
Unheard of.
Yeah, since Superman and Batman's big runs in the 90s when they were doing that. This just wasn't happening.
And this is exactly why Jeff Johns has a great deal of... power's the wrong word, but a great deal of influence. Clout in the Warner Brothers world with DC.
Because for one thing, he still is a successful, prolific writer. So he's pumping out different books, but at the same time, there was quality in the writing. Told good stories. And that's actually interesting enough. That was one of the things that got me back into comic books about 10 years ago, was his run on Green Lantern.
Yeah. I mean, he's a hell of a writer, so I'll give him credit where credit's due.
Donald, your number 9, please.
My number 9 is somebody we all know and love. Well, actually, not everybody knows and loves, but I know and love. Dr. Jonathan Crane, a.k.a. the Scarecrow.
I'm a little shocked you put that at 9. I felt like that'd be higher on your list.
I put him this low on the list just basically because of... just because DC's so rich in villains, it's really hard to put the Scarecrow higher up on the list without being able... There's a lot of justification that has to go on, like with the Mad Men. Really probably not deserving of a number 10, but not many people know them, so I thought, let's give them a shot.
Right.
But with the Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane, during his childhood, he was obsessed with fear and revenge as a result of having been constantly bullied. He resembled the character Ichabod Crane from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, so he got made fun of for that. He was bullied by the school bully. He was rejected by a cheerleader. He took revenge during his senior prom by donning his trademark Scarecrow costume and brandishing a gun in the school parking lot. In the ensuing chaos, the bully gets into a car accident, paralyzing himself and killing the cheerleader. So that was kind of effed up. Crane's obsession with fear leads him to becoming a psychologist, taking a position at Arkham Asylum and performing fear-inducing experiments on his patients. He is also a professor of psychology at Gotham University, specializing in the study of phobias. He loses his job after he fires a gun inside a packed classroom. This guy loves guns. Accidentally wounding a student, he takes revenge by killing the professors responsible for his termination and becoming a career criminal. Scarecrow is depicted as one of the more deranged criminals in Batman's rogues gallery, with a habit of speaking in nursery rhymes. These stories further revise his backstory, explaining that he was raised by his fanatically religious grandmother, who he murdered as a teenager.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Terror storyline by Doug Mensch. He's set in Batman's early years, where Scarecrow is broken out of prison by mysteriously returned Professor Hugo Strange, who selects Scarecrow as an ally to help him capture Batman. So Scarecrow creates what's called a fear toxin. This fear toxin is used to bring out your worst fears and make them a reality. It is designed to paralyze someone. It is designed to cripple someone in such fear that they cannot continue their normal day-to-day functionality. They can't do anything but be scared, sometimes scared to death. And in that, creating somebody's fear, bringing that fear that they've created themselves, actually, bringing that fear on the forefront and making it such a prevalent thing in that person's mind that they could literally die, that puts him on the list at number 9.
Well, and I think Scarecrow also is great at encapsulating the very darker stories of Batman.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
You know, because I think a lot of people are drawn to Batman because there is definitely sort of I guess you could say, a darker realism. And Scarecrow fits that perfectly.
And hence I understand why Donald was upset about his depiction in the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
There's only so much time we have in a podcast.
It's true. It's true. They butchered that shit, and I was pissed.
Well, moving on. I'm sorry about that to get you started. What is your number 9?
You know, number 9, we're going to go in a completely different mood here from Vandal Savage. I'm going to go with Captain Cold. Better known as Leonard Snart. Debuted in Showcase number 8, June 1957. He's a master thief and a possessor of the cold gun. Now, he is human. His cold gun is something to marvel at a little bit. No pun intended. This is kind of why I like him. I really like characters that have, you know, firearms that can be unique or a little different, and that he's human. His cold gun, by the way, has slowed down the Flash. The single fastest person on the planet. He can slow him down. Now, this is kind of screwed up. And what's funny is, like, when I think of the Flash is a very vibrant comic. Obviously, there's a lot of lightheartedness and things like that. But very subconsciously, there's crap like this. His gun can shoot a wide beam that can freeze your skin. However, follow me now, it keeps you conscious and you never go numb to the pain.
Wow.
All right? That's maximum suffering, which is really, for lack of a better term, cold.
It's cold-blooded. It's cold-blooded.
Yeah, it's just nasty. You know, the person who killed his sister, of course, had to suffer this fate. Also, something else that's kind of interesting with the cold gun is it can create stalagmites, which will impale your enemies.
Okay, so he could create one on the ceiling and then use it again to kind of bust through it, and then all that stuff would fall. Or he could create it from the bottom. So what's stalactites or stalagmites?
A stalagmite, yeah.
Comes from the bottom?
Yeah, it can come up from the bottom. It's essentially like just putting a big spear of ice. You know, obviously he can do a lot more than that, but I just found those to be the most interesting things about Captain Cold. And man, this dude is kind of brutal.
Yeah, and he sounds like this, according to DC's television series.
You know, and
It's the worst.
I really like that Flash show, but man, Wentworth Miller, what in the world were they thinking?
I mean, he's great as he could be as Captain Cold. He looks apart.
Yes,
but the voice choice. I'm sorry, everybody out there that loves the character in the series. That voice is just grating. I mean, it's got to be worse than.
It's just not the voice of a brilliant tactician. I'm sorry.
No.
It just isn't. Kevin, you're number 8.
All right, my number 8 is the man from the planet Riot, Atrocitus.
Ooh, there we go.
Yes. The leader and the founder of the Red Lantern Corps. Very fascinating man, because deep down inside, he's not evil per se.
Mm-hmm.
He's been done dirty. His family was taken from him, which he blames the Guardians for, of course, and there's truth to that. And one thing I like about his Red Lantern Corps, Dexstar, that cat.
Oh yeah, I love the cat.
And it's cool because these guys operate on rage and blood. I mean, blood literally comes out of their mouths. I mean, they're one of the most powerful Lantern Corps in the Lantern Corps spectrum. And of course, it goes back to why those Green Lantern books were so popular.
They're so angry.
And so angry. But Trazos is a cool character. I mean, if you ever read his run in Green Lantern Guardians, where he teams up with Hal Jordan and Sinestro and crew, it's very good. I mean, they all interact with each other very well. So he's a well-written character created by Jeff Johns. Check him out. If you want his first appearance, it is Green Lantern Volume 4, issue number 25.
Ooh la la.
All right, Donald, you're number 8.
My number 8 is also a Flash villain. My number 8, I went with the Mirror Master.
Well.
Oh, I love the Mirror Master.
The Mirror Master is really cool. The most popular one I would say would probably be, I don't know, Evan McCullough. Probably because he's the most, I think, recent of the time. There's quite a bit of a lot of people that also like Samuel Joseph, a.k.a. Sam Scudder, who was a simple convict but had the goal to learn how to get inside the reflection of a mirror. Now, how obsessed do you have to be with yourself, staring in the mirror that you're like, I need to get in there. You know, I need to get in it.
Well, we live in Hollywood.
Yep. So he stumbled into a hall of mirrors and experimented and discovered a way to get in his own reflection. He used his power to become the criminal master, Mirror Master, and was a frequent foe of the Flash. He died around the same time as Barry Allen alongside the Icicle, which is another villain, during the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Later, Captain Boomerang briefly took over as Scudder's identity. And then that's when, after that, McCullough took over to be the Mirror Master. Mirror Master is a cool character for simple reasons. Any reflective surface he can get inside and get away. So if you have any reflective surface, what's more reflective on the human body than the eye?
Wow.
I don't know if they've ever done it. I don't know, but the thought of that to me is scary. Like he could just go into your eyes.
Man, I was going to go with like a puddle of water. I didn't even think about your eyes.
A puddle of water, a tear, sweat on your brow.
So what do you do? Don't wear glasses.
Glasses, anything in your pocket reflective, your phone, for God's sakes, anything he can find a way to travel through and get inside.
So you tell me there's going to be a market in non-reflective glasses.
Probably if this comes to life. If this character becomes real, definitely.
So you know what? He'd be a good commercial for lens crafters.
So that's why he's number 8, higher up than the Scarecrow on my list, simply because of the potential for his character to travel and cause mischief and mayhem.
I like that. You're number 8, Mr. Darren.
I'm going to go with Brainiac, but for kind of, I would find to be a little unusual reasons. Okay, so this is Vril Dox, what he's otherwise known as, debuted in Action Comics number 242 in July of 1958. Now, what I really dig about Brainiac is that he has powers, and the DC Universe is great at this. He has powers that have never existed anywhere in the world at any time, and they can create these powers. The vocabulary of his powers is just tremendous to me. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about, obviously, superhuman, despite the fact he's not human. Can flight, regeneration, technopathy. I didn't know technopathy was a thing, and then I started reading Brainiac.
Oh, yeah.
Has the ability to possess other beings. Has these really incredible psychic powers. And by incredible, I mean there's no better word to describe it. Usually is depicted as an extraterrestrial cyborg or android. Shrunk and stole the capital of Krypton and put it in a bottle. Now, apparently there was a big plan by Brainiac to do this to a number of worlds because he was going to collect these.
Wasn't it Kandor? Was that the bottled city?
Okay. It is. And what he was going to do is he was going to take all these shrunken cities and help rebuild his world with them, all right? But Kandor is really the only one that I can think of that he successfully did this. But this was going to be, of course, a massive plan that was going to happen. And here's this is some more of this really original kind of things that DC created. He has 12th level intellect.
Oh, yes.
Which I have no concept of what that is. And let's be real, the last thing that I can say about Brainiac, I really just love the concept and the look of Brainiac. Whoever is drawing Brainiac is just, it's so appealing to your eye. Like, you can't keep your eye off it. And this is why I like Brainiac. I mean, I try to avoid these, like, massive celestial sized, invulnerable villains. But I mean, Brainiac is very cool. Brainiac's very cool. And I have a few more of those types on here, but this is kind of what.
Also, his son and grandson are interesting characters too.
Oh yeah, his grandson.
Even more so.
Yeah, it was actually
Number 3.
On my list, and I had to take him off to put something else on there.
Oh.
Yeah.
The Hamburglar.
The Hamburglar. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, who's your number 7?
My number 7 is the CEO of LexCorp, Mr. Lex Luthor.
A classic.
A classic.
Very classic character, overdone in my opinion.
Yeah, in movies, yes.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, although he came first before Tony Stark, he's essentially DC's Tony Stark, just an evil version of that.
He's an evil kingpin Tony Stark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant man, big ego.
I mean, he was even president.
Yep, even president.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at different versions of him throughout, the different Earths, he's just
at times a hero.
Even. But what can you say? I mean, he's the one human being on Earth who
has bested Superman.
Has bested Superman. Gives Superman a run for his money because he can outsmart Superman at certain times. So that's someone that Superman has to respect. Although if he can just get him out of the suit or whatever, he can easily crush him. But this guy's thinking ahead. Mm-hmm. He's always like 2 steps ahead.
And I still always felt brilliantly portrayed by Gene Hackman.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Gene, yeah, definitely. Boy, those movies got rougher and rougher as they went along, but
Yes.
Well, for you.
Yeah.
The Quest for Peace I found outstanding. Because we have a long history of Superman villains, yet did they ever think of Nuclear Man? No.
Especially when he was derived from just a strand of his hair.
Mm-hmm.
And amazingly voiced by Gene Hackman.
Yes.
And let's not forget a nephew appearance by John Cryer.
Wow.
Who, by the way, had more hair had less hair in 1987 than he does now. Donald, who's your number 7?
My number 7 is the man, the myth, the legend, the Joker.
That's really, time out. That's really low.
On the list, I know. It's really low on the list.
Wow. Well, I'll give you a chance to defend it.
And I'm going to defend it simply because he's kind of a one-note character. He's insane. He's a psychopath with a warped sadistic sense of humor. He was a goofy prankster in the 50s, because of the Comic Code Authority, before returning to his darker roots, which came in the 70s. And, they give a lot of credit of that to the artistic talents of a lot of the people at the time. So he paralyzed Barbara Gordon. We all remember the shot in the spine, in the stomach through the spine, and paralyzing her. He supposedly beat Jason Todd to death. He has cut off his own face. He has decimated other villains to the point of tears and groveling. He's the king of crazy. He is the ultimate psychopath. And in that lies, to me, both his greatest achievements and his biggest failures. In that he's never able to get out of his own sanity. Or insanity. The only time you ever see that really is in my recent memory is that Batman White Knight, where we find that the Joker had not been taking his pills, and they were like pretty much denying him them, and he had to, once he started taking his pills again, he became a very level-headed member of society and became more manipulative in nature because he could, but was very intelligent. And that gave a side of a character that I have not seen. and very much appreciated because it added another layer to someone that's very one-dimensional in their inability to go outside of the box of crazy, so to speak. So he's great because of what he's done. I mean, the Joker is the ultimate, like I said, the ultimate madman. You don't know what he's going to do.
It's unpredictable.
In fact, that was one of the things that they used him for. I can't remember against who, but they used the Joker because the Joker's mind could not be predicted. It was so unpredictable that he was used to
at Infinite Crisis, I believe.
Was it an Infinite Crisis?
Yeah. Because he, gosh, if I recall, I think it was against Alexander Luthor. He was pissed off at him because he didn't invite him to join the villains.
Yeah. Oh, that would make sense. So then he became part of that. He's just a character. A lot of people say Bob Kane, created him. A lot of people say Jerry Robinson created him, and a lot of people say Bill Finger. Mm-hmm. I would say it's probably more Finger and Robinson, to be honest, than anybody else. And I would say Robinson, who said he did. I would tend to believe him. He always seemed like a pretty stand-up guy.
We met him about a decade ago.
Yeah, we did meet him. He's a very nice gentleman. And, he's been a very, very strong for the rights of comic book artists and writers and stuff. So he's been a proponent of that. So that's the Joker. That's why he's on the list, and that's why for me he is number 7. Darren?
Well, my number 7 is going to be Uxas, better known as Darkseid. Now, his first full appearance. Mind you, there was a cameo. I'm not going to get into that. That's something for y'all to look up yourself.
First full appearance, Forever People, number 1?
Yes, absolutely correct. Thank you for taking the words right out of my mouth in the words of Meatloaf. February 1971, folks. Okay, here we go. Generally superhuman. Flight. Immortality. There's a lot of gray area here for me when you say immortality. Okay. Energy and matter manipulation. That's nasty. Teleportation. Omega powers. Of course, a genius intellect. Great hand-to-hand skills, which seem rather unnecessary in my opinion. And control over elements. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where I do a small run of villains on my list that I call just flat-out mean. His Omega beams can erase you from existence, which in my notes I say is mean. He can pretend like you never existed because you can be smothered to a point of complete, poof, you're gone. And that, like I said, I think that you have to, when you're talking about villains, part of it is respect, part of it is fear. And someone that can do that with those Omega beams, I'm sorry, covers both bases for me quite strong. Lee. Strongly.
He's a very tough Chinese guy. Strongly. No? Okay. Sorry.
How dare you joke about the dark side?
That was bad.
All right, Kevin, who is your number 6?
Well, my 6 was basically Donald's number 7. The Joker, the Crown Prince of Crime.
Wow. See? Yeah, pretty low on the list.
In the Red Hood.
And the Red Hood.
Oh, man.
What's interesting about Joker, and you kind of hit up on this, Don, a little bit, if he actually just for once went just sane, just for once, and actually became, was just sane, he actually can get a full victory.
Yeah.
Because he's very intelligent, very bright. Mm-hmm. The Dark Knight movie, for example, kind of showed a good depiction of his intelligence, even within the insanity. This guy was just throwing everyone out for a loop. And the comics, he did the same thing. He would just do things just to F with Batman. Like, he's always pushed Batman to the edge to a point where Batman could have killed him when he would finally catch him. Mm-hmm. And sometimes Joker would just kind of bait him into doing it, but he just won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Because he knows. So he knows how to push those buttons like no other. He's villain. Like Batman's girlfriend. Just knows how to push the right buttons.
In a way, yes. You know what? He's even made Batman laugh on occasion.
Yeah.
You know what? When you talk about that depiction by Heath Ledger, I mean, what I found interesting in that film is he's a parallel for terrorism.
Yes.
Which I found interesting that Chris Nolan would go there. I guess I shouldn't be surprised because in many ways he is an independent style filmmaker. Mm-hmm. But that made me think a little differently. And there's clearly a extreme nihilism in that portrayal of Joker.
And there's also subtleties that he may have been a war veteran.
Yes.
That depiction of the Joker.
That is an excellent
Because
observation.
if you look at certain things about him, it kind of makes sense, especially when he would tell his stories, and then that one scene where he didn't have his face painted on, and plus just the way he operated was very military type precision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that there was always a little theory out there, and I actually kind of believe it, that it's possible that this guy could have been an ex-military, at least that version.
Right.
Donald, who do you have for your number 6?
My number 6, Darren, it's going to sound very familiar. I went with Vandal Savage.
Oh,
Vandal Savage, just to be quick about it, there was I think, it was a Superman animated series, or was it a Justice League episode where Superman got stranded back in time? And when he was back in time, like during the Age of the Dinosaur or something, Vandal Savage was there. And he was like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, Vandal Savage, what are you doing? He's like, oh yeah, I've been living here forever. I've been around for a long time. So how you doing? I can maybe help you fix a ship or fix this for you or whatever. He's a very intelligent man. He was a man that was so far ahead of his time. I don't understand how he hasn't gotten farther. Like, for me, if you're living centuries and you're seeing the flows and patterns of things, you should be able to dictate when things are going to happen, like the stock market crash. Yeah. Simple for someone like Vandal Savage.
Of course.
Stuff like that. He should be everything that Kingpin has ever hoped to be. He should be higher up on everybody's list as far as villains are concerned. He should be higher up on everybody's list as far as the power he controls. But for some reason, they've never given him enough or done enough with him. He was, in 50,000 BC. This man was a caveman.
Right.
Dominating other cavemen in learning, in with that knowledge, building and becoming the man he is. It could also, I would see, create a form of madness, too, to be able to be that old, that long, and not really age, just kind of continue on in the world. There's a certain set of sadness, a certain bit of sadness to it too, in that everyone around him he sees die, and there's no one that could be his equal as far as in love, in life, in anything.
Like Highlander,
right? Just moments that he would experience with people, and I guess you just have to learn to treasure those. So Vandal Savage, to me, just simply because of his intelligence and his abilities. He's very strong also. I would put him definitely on the list where I put him. I think he has the potential to be a greater character than a lot of people give him credit for.
And technically, 2 things. He predated Gilgamesh, if you ask me, because, I said a couple podcasts ago that was the original superhero. And secondly, I agree with you that there hasn't been the perfect story yet. I felt like Legends of Tomorrow was doing nice stuff with Vandal Savage, but it just didn't conclude.
And that guy that played him, I'm sorry, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here with that shit. He was poorly cast. It was a bad decision. You guys fudged it up. Legends of Tomorrow Season 1 was complete trash compared to Season 2 and 3. Season 2 and 3, just night and day, Season 2 and 3 instead of Season 1. It was just, Season 1 was so bad. I never finished it. Never finished it.
Me neither.
It was awful.
Yeah, it just seemed like every episode was one long commercial for the next episode.
Yep. All right. Who do we got? Darren, what do you have?
I just have this fascination with animals. I'm going with Gorilla Grodd.
Oh, there you
Nice.
go.
Gorilla Grodd is a meta-gorilla, debuted in The Flash number 106, May 1959.
Does he fight Detective Chimp at any point? Or?
Oh, he doesn't fight him, but there is a story that if you listen to a previous podcast where we discussed Detective Chimp, we can go on about this. So obviously a genius, enhanced strength, being that he's a gorilla, and he's not a small gorilla, like he's a rather large gorilla by comparison to what you would expect. Has a gorilla with telepathy. How are you not sold when a gorilla has telepathy? That's instant entertainment to me. Telekinesis, which I'll get into a little more about the degree of that, has the ability to control your mind. A gorilla can control your mind.
Insanity!
Obviously became empowered after an alien spacecraft crashed into his home in Africa. And then built Gorilla City, which is a marvel to stare at. Once again, no pun intended. Even in the drawings and in the comic books, what a great thing to stare at, Gorilla City.
It was Wakanda before there was Wakanda.
Oh.
Or maybe Wakanda after there was Wakanda. I don't know.
Yeah.
The great city's hidden from the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Wakanda had the what did they use? They used some type of
Cloaking.
device or something, and I believe they use the same thing for Gorilla City or some type of magic or something like that. I can't remember
So
what.
people mind their business, they don't know.
Right? Yeah.
Now, I think Gorilla Grodd is a great villain for Barry Allen. I found, what's unfortunate, though, is Gorilla Grodd, the original story being that Barry Allen was warned through telepathy that, hey, the gorillas are coming to invade you, and he was able to prepare and obviously stop him. Now, Gorilla Grodd keeps popping up. I think if we would have stopped at that story there, I would have been sufficiently cool with that. But it keeps popping up. And this is my favorite thing. Do you know that Gorilla Grodd, with his telekinesis, can lift thousands of tons with his mind?
That's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive. That's like buildings.
Even for a gorilla.
It's buildings.
Never underestimate a gorilla.
Nope.
Kevin, we are getting into the top 5, the heavy hitters.
Yes, we are.
Shit. Here
And
we go.
My number 5 is the king of riddles and puzzles, Edward Nygma,
Oh, I love Edward
the
Nygma.
Riddler.
Oh,
Alright.
fine choice.
Underappreciated, underrated villain, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who also, much like the Joker in a way, if he just went off a little bit from his usual schemes, he could win. His problem is he outsmarts himself with his riddles.
Stupid.
And sometimes in life, that's kind of realistic. Sometimes you outsmart yourself that you end up leading to some kind of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been Nygma's problem. He kind of sometimes just outsmarts himself, and that Batman will eventually figure out. Because in some ways, his clues basically lead you to him. It leads you to the solution on how to defeat him or defeat his schemes. So if he just learned just to calm it down a little bit, just tone it down, his schemes,
Settle down.
he could win.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, no offense to Jim Carrey, good actor, that was not the proper depiction we saw many years ago in Batman Forever.
Oh, that was a great exercise in scenery chewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he basically
So bad.
He basically took Frank Gorshin's depiction from the 60s show and thought that was it. But all Frank Gorshin was doing was trying to copy Cesar Romero's Joker, because he was also was auditioning for the same part. He wanted to be Joker too, so he figured, okay, they gave me Riddler, I'm gonna try and out
Here's
zing.
the weird part is Jamie Foxx has had to have seen that movie or heard about it. And then in Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he does the exact same goddamn character for Electro as Jim Carrey did for the Riddler.
I haven't seen the movie yet. Really? He does that?
It's so bad, Kevin.
Really?
No, it's funny because on the surface,
That's sad.
On the surface, I would disagree with Donald that happened. But when you really read into it, just because Jim Carrey is a little more over the top than Jamie Foxx is with it, he's absolutely correct, Donald. Is on this.
Maybe it's the living color effect.
And what a wacky pairing with Tommy Lee Jones, who does a very bizarre Two-Face.
Which, by the way, that is probably one of the worst acting jobs, and it's a sad thing to say. It's probably one of the worst acting jobs that Tommy Lee Jones ever did in his career.
Hey, even Morgan Freeman sucks sometimes.
I mean,
That's true.
I'm not going to go
It's a book
there.
I'm
but
writing.
I know.
Coming out soon.
I know. I
don't blame.
understand.
I
what you're
don't
saying.
blame him, by the way, because he's just doing. The actors you're given the material that's given to you, and they tell you to do.
Of course.
But but I look back at it, I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah. Why?
why?
Jesus,
Why?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just wanted to mention real quick about a shop in Canoga Park, California called Spiro's Heroes. Elliot, the proprietor of the store, has over 300,000 books in what's called the Temple of Comics. That's Spiro Heroes in Canoga Park, spirosheroes.com.
All right, that was your number 5, correct?
Yes, sir. What's your number 5?
My number 5, Anton Arcane.
Ah, yes.
Now, a lot of people don't know who Anton Arcane is.
Oh,
That's why they listen
I
to
know
this
him.
podcast.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so to break it down simply, he is the number 1 villain of Swamp Thing. You'll all know about him and find out about him very soon when the DC streaming series comes out. Anton's going to be a big bad boy in that, I can guarantee you. Arcane is a scientist whose obsession with gaining immortality has led him to create monstrous creatures known as Unmen, as well as other monstrous biogenetic experimentations involving the dead. He's basically the Reanimator before there was the Reanimator. He was able to resurrect his deceased brother, Gregory, as the Patchwork Man. He is also a skilled magician, which he is able to channel through his horrific experiments. Living in the mountains of Europe with his niece, Abigail, who, by the way, is Swampy's love of his life, Abigail Arcane, creates kind of a Romeo and Juliet type of atmosphere to where Anton is insane and wants to pull apart Swamp Thing and take his powers for his own so he can have the immortality of the swamp and to be able to create however he wants and possess whatever he wants. If you think about it, Swamp Thing has some of the best and the strongest powers in the world and possibly universe, depending on space vegetation. But, being able to control the green is what they would call it, anything with life, as far as plant-based, Swamp Thing can do it.
Sounds like some hippie stuff right there.
Right? It does. So Arcane becomes the leader and the proprietor of what they call the Rot, which is the Gray in the DC2 universe that they had during the reboot that they did, the New 52. Yeah. So this actually got really good. Swamp Thing was a really good book here not more than, 5 years ago?
Yeah, Scott Snyder did a great job.
Scott Snyder, and then handed it off to Charles Scholl, who also ran with it quite well, and created and revitalized one of the best villains in comic book history, Anton Arcane, who is, when he's the leader of the Rot, aka the Gray, he's basically anything that's rotting or decaying, he can possess and take over. And he can start to use that to rot more things and eventually destroy the green and the red being all mammals and earthly creatures that are alive.
Animal man factor.
That's a perfect villain for Swamp Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why he's my number 5. Darren?
All right, my number 5, hopefully we can all mutually agree, not necessarily the placement on the list, but just what a cool villain. That would be Deathstroke.
Oh, absolutely.
I love the look of Deathstroke. Oh my God. There's just something so cool about him. He's known as Slade Wilson, not Wade Wilson.
He's the original.
Slade Wilson is the original.
Who, of course, Wade Wilson was a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, as well as Deadpool.
There you
Correct.
go.
And most can argue a more popular character than the character that he's making fun of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, of course, debuted. Now, this is a relatively new character for us real comic book historians. Debuted in New Teen Titans #2, December of 1980. Great swordsman and a great marksman. Now, this is an interesting power I found. He can utilize, thanks to a serum, 90% of his brain. What do the most intelligent humans utilize? Like 11? I mean, that's just unbelievable to me. Like, I don't even know what that would look like, 90% of your brain. You probably can have telepathy at that point. He has this really awesome sword that was given to him by Hephaestus. It's called the God Killer. Now, this is just, this is, in many ways, it's like, this has got to be one of the most powerful things, like Thor's axe, essentially. Now, what I find fascinating, too, about this, if it's broken, the sword can regenerate and refragment itself, which
that's amazing,
unbelievable. And it can also transform into a bow staff, a cat o' nine tails, twin swords, etc. And let me tell you, how awesome is Deathstroke? And what kind of influence does he have? In the Arrow TV series, which essentially was the first of a string of TV series that essentially got, the CW rolling with these, it was pretty much Arrow just at the time. They set the storyline up perfectly where it was very justified to kill Deathstroke. But instead, he was just imprisoned and tucked away because his popularity was just too big and they couldn't kill him. And that, in many ways, I felt hurt the series, but it kind of showed you just how great a character Deathstroke can be if done correctly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Number 4, Kevin.
My number 4 is Mr. Teth Adam himself. Black Adam.
I knew you'd have him.
Ooh. A man who started out good under Shazam was corrupted by, from my origins, Blaze, the evil daughter of Shazam, in one of the origins I was reading.
Okay.
But in any case, he is the arch rival of Shazam. I'm serious about Shazam. Yeah, of Shazam.
Shazam now.
Of Shazam now, of Batson, Mr. Billy Batson.
Captain Marvel.
Now, his powers are interesting, although there's similarity. He has the stamina of Shu. He's going like the Egyptian gods here. The speed of Haru. The strength of Aman. The wisdom of Zehuti. The power of Atan. And the courage of Mahen. And he's just been one of the top villains for decades. Wouldn't you agree, Donald?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I know Jared would appreciate this.
He's a powerhouse. He really is. He's a villainous powerhouse. Utilized quite well in the Injustice Gods Among Us comic book series as well. Very good. Very, very well done character.
Very effective.
And soon, I believe, to be The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson, yes.
Yeah.
At some point, he will be playing the villain, Black Adam, in a
Right.
Shazam movie.
Yep. All right. Well, my number 4 also sounds familiar. Deathstroke the Terminator.
Who's that?
Slade Wilson. Now, Darren said most of it, so I'm just going to go over one little part here. An Identity Crisis. If you haven't read it. If you haven't read it, read it. There we go. Deathstroke was enlisted in this series as a bodyguard for Dr. Light, who was being pursued by the Justice League as a suspect in the murder of Sue Dibney. In the ensuing battle, Deathstroke nearly beat the team of Elongated Man, Flash, Zatanna, Hawkman, Green Arrow, Black Canary, Atom, and Green Lantern.
It's like a who's who list.
Right. He systematically took out every member except for Raynor, who he had the potential to disable through trying to absorb his ring energies using his own formidable willpower, if you could believe it. Almost outwilled a Green Lantern. But before the outcome of this conflict with Green Lantern ended, Green Arrow stuck an arrow in Deathstroke's right eye socket, enraging him. Slade went on, he went ballistic, which derailed his pre-planned strategy and began to beat Green Arrow, but was stopped when the majority of the team tackled him to the ground. And then Dr. Light used his powers to help him escape. But that was a point where everybody went, oh shit, Deathstroke's back. He's bad again. And he means business. He took down basically the entire Justice League, except for Green Arrow, who shot him in the eye socket.
You know, if you were playing a video game, DC versus Marvel, is there any doubt you would select Deathstroke?
Of course.
Yeah, no doubt for me. I would be picking him. He's a great character, a great villain, and a great hero in a way too, I guess you could say. But anyway, moving on. Darren?
I'm going to duplicate Kevin here. I'm going to go my number 4 with the Riddler. Detective Comics number 140, October 1948. What's interesting, Kevin, is you did not cover a lot of the material I'm going to cover, which is
That's fine.
so fresh for our listeners.
That's fine.
A genius intellect, of course, very skilled engineer,
Yes, he is.
and a skilled computer programmer, as well as an escape artist. I, of course, with the Riddler, I love the utilization of complex riddles, puzzles, and these like lethal death traps. I mean, it's just so cool. Like, you just don't picture the Riddler being this person that's just like Death and the Riddler didn't cross me. I just thought he was just an irritant, but no, this dude can kill you.
Yes, he can.
His crimes are usually, here's the $1 million words for you, flamboyant and ostentatious, which of course, great entertainment for the reader. You know, it's an interesting fact about him. Before he became the Riddler, he was a carny. And he used to cheat people with complex puzzles. I thought that was very interesting. And here's something that's going to be a first on this podcast, guys. I'm going to actually recommend some reading for people if they haven't got to it. Batman's The Long Halloween and the sequel Dark Victory. Now, I really love the Riddler here because the Riddler plays an informant. Now, I don't think that he has a great role, in my opinion, in Long Halloween. However, in Dark Victory, he helps Batman catch the Hangman. And I just think that's one of the coolest things that I've seen the Riddler in, and maybe something people haven't, maybe read quite as much. Obviously, my favorite thing is his intellect, not his muscles, are basically what causes all the turmoil with superheroes, especially Batman. Kevin, we're in the top 3.
Yes, we are.
These are the 3 people you want hitting in the bottom of the 9th when you're down 1 in the World Series.
Absolutely. And my number 3 is Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash, the master of the negative speed force.
Mm-hmm.
Has pretty much the abilities of the Flash, but could just give him hell. Basically his mirror image from the future. And the one I picked, of course, is Obard Thawne.
Of course.
He's wonderful. Great villain. Well done. Even at one point in one storyline, he went back in time.
Eobard? What you said?
Yeah, Yobard. Okay. I probably didn't say it right. Yobard Thawne.
It's okay. Yeah, the Reverse Flash.
Reverse Flash.
It's
Now,
a great character, you're right.
If I recall, didn't he go back in time one point and cause like Barry Allen's mother's death?
Yeah. I believe so, yeah.
Of course.
I mean, if he just does some dirty things, man, this guy is just a dirty mofo.
He's not a nice man.
Nope.
You're right.
Nope, not at all.
He's a man that's evil just for the intent of being evil.
Yep.
Which is some of the scariest shit you'll see.
Yeah.
Because there's no righting a wrong there. There's no fixing something.
Nope.
Evil's evil.
Evil's evil. And this guy, like I said, he's brilliant, genius intellect, a skilled hand-to-hand combatant too, and can push Barry Allen to the limit and then some.
And, you know, I really like his name, Eobard Thawne. It really, I've never heard anyone named Eobard.
It's a very unique name.
It's literally a name from another universe, which is outstanding. That really gets you into the story of Reverse Flash.
Mm-hmm. All right, I got a number 3 here for you. My number 3 has already been talked about. It's Brainiac.
Oh, great.
Now, I am going to say that I did take, I had a number 3 before this. It was Eclipso. Eclipso is the evil version of the Wrath of God. He's the corrupted version, and he's the opposite of the Spectre. Right. I unfortunately took him off. I just didn't have room, so I'm sorry, Eclipso. But Brainiac did replace him. Brainiac is the... basically, he is one of Superman's primary enemies, and he did the city of Kandor. He shrunk that. He goes around collecting worlds and cities and things and trying to preserve them for himself. He basically is Marvel's version of the Collector in a way. It is a very clever character. In fact, there was a funny scene where there was some old Brainiac or something that was still working and collecting, and I can't remember. It was in a Green Lantern comic, I believe. And they go into Brainiac's ship, and they find that in one of the bottles is the New 52 Lobo. And so they start breaking all these bottles to let the people out of these bottles. All these people have been imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to break that one, and somebody grabs the guy's hand. He's like, oh, no, don't let that one out. Mm-hmm. Because everybody realized universally that version of Lobo was the worst idea to ever have existed. In the New 52, it was a bad idea to make an emo Lobo.
Boo.
Just a terrible idea.
Bad idea.
So Brainiac, he's strong. He's intelligent. He's a humanoid. He was originally like robotic and then created a more human-like body. He's went toe-to-toe with Superman in numerous amounts of times. He's destroyed worlds. He's collected worlds. He is the largest character on that list that I have, that I could list, without saying Darkseid or somebody like that. And that's where you're right there, Darren. He's a big baddie. He is Superman's number 1 as far as I'm concerned. Forget General Zod. I
agree.
Forget Lex Luthor. Forget
Bizarro.
all the rest. It's Brainiac. He knows how Superman thinks. He collected his city. He was there when the whole thing went down, when everything went to pot and got destroyed. He was there. He knows everything about the Kryptonians.
12th level intellect.
He's a smart son of a bitch. He knows everything. He is the ultimate villain, and he is underutilized 100%.
Amen, brother.
Especially on film.
Especially on film.
All right, and you're number 3, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, when it comes to number 3, you cannot have a great, story of Green Lantern without a great villain, and that's Sinestro.
Yep.
It's pretty obvious. I mean, of course, debuting in Green Lantern, Volume 2, number 7, August 1961. Picture a Green Lantern with an innate understanding of fear and phobia. And, it's really interesting because I love the parallel of will versus fear.
Yes.
In Green Lantern. But the major difference here, the one power he has that I can't recall a Green Lantern having, correct me if I'm wrong, is his ability for space-time and reality manipulation. That's just wrong. I mean, it's like, if you can do all those things, my question to you guys, how could you ever lose a battle?
Mm-hmm.
How could you?
And also, too, what I like about Sinestro is, remember, Sinestro was a Green Lantern.
Yes, so he knows them inside out.
And they touched on it briefly in the film, but obviously in the comic runs, there's a lot of resentment there from Sinestro, and it's completely understandable. So that's my number 3.
Well, piggybacking on that, my number 2 is also Sinestro.
Doesn't surprise me. I know that's your guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Korugar, the man from Korugar. And what I like about him is he's also someone who's pushed Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps.
I'd say he's the Magneto of the DC universe.
I was just about to get that. Yeah. He believes what he's doing is the right thing. He does not see himself as a bad person or as a villain. He sees himself as, no, I'm doing the right thing for the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I should have the ability to make changes as I see fit. And you know what? He does at times have a good heart, especially during the runs of the New Guardians from years ago.
Or when they were even like, "Hey, we're gonna let you kill Hal Jordan."
Yeah. When he was going crazy, and guess what? And then you felt bad for him when he initially was murdered by Hal Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that's cool about him, people, you have to read the Sinestro Corps War.
Oh my God!
One of the best stories of the 21st century ever written. Amazing. This guy, with his intellect, he's also a very bright man, if I might add. Sinestro. He was able to build a team of, get this, Superboy Prime, Mongol, the Anti-Monitor, and in addition to that, his own Sinestro Corps.
I love Anti-Monitor.
Yep, and that Mongol figure, by the way, from that run that they it is ginormous. That Mongol figure is like a small infant child. Like, you could wrap that in something and carry it with you, and somebody'd be like, "Oh, what's your baby's name? Mongol." You know.
But Sinestro, to me, definitely a all-time top 10 comic book villain.
And that's your number 2, huh?
Yes.
Oh, my number 2.
Let me guess.
This gets good. This gets good, guys.
Let me guess.
Starro.
Yeah, Starro.
That's a highbrow selection there, sir.
I'm not even
actually
kidding.
is. It actually
I'm not
is.
even kidding. And we talked about this. We broached this subject, I think, the last time with the heroes. When we talked about Rebels and Tony Bedard's run. And Tony, if you're listening, again, I'm going to say, bravo, sir. My hat's off to you. I wish you had been able to finish the way you wanted to finish. And in fact, if anybody at DC is listening, let the man back on it. Let him do his job. Let him just crush this series and make it God, this was one of the best series I've ever read. Rebels by Tony Bedard. Basically, what he did was he took Starro, Starro was kind of just a giant telepathic star that could spit out more stars that would attach itself to people's faces, and then he would control those people through those little stars.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Puppet Master.
Puppet Master, exactly. So that was the big thing. It was eventually revealed that Starro belonged to a race of parasites that conquered planets with mother stars that released spores to take mental control of a population. When a mother star arrived on the planet Hattori and enslaved its physically gifted native humanoids, a sole survivor of this takes control of an infant Starro queen, allowing him to mentally dominate the entire parasitic race. They basically chose the wrong dude, and he took over using his sheer will. He dominated the entire parasitic race. He assumed the name Starro the Conqueror. The being is empowered by a huge army of drone soldiers controlled by spores, allowing him to conquer entire galaxies, guys. A human possessed by Starro is later seen amongst the villains recruited in the Secret Society, which that comes later. But the humanoid Starro the Conqueror possessed telepathy strong enough to control the entire Starro alien race. He possessed immeasurable levels of physical resilience, further bolstered by the energies drawn from the victims of his Starro probes. Being physically strong enough, this Starro the Conqueror, was so strong that he was able to behead the invulnerable Despero in single combat, taking over his planet as well. Starro the Conqueror is all but impervious to physical harm, much like his larger Starro clones. Also akin to said spores, the humanoid Starro can reproduce its own Starro clones from the Mother Starro on his chest. A unique power of his own making is the ability to convert normal Earth-based starfish into Starro-based spores. So imagine the Puppet Master, but imagine Conan the Barbarian being unable to be defeated, being unable to be destroyed, and having the power to control everything within his grasp. A bad Conan, if you feel me. Like somebody like that could just conquer everything and anything. This guy is the mother of all baddies.
I think he can beat the Xenomorph.
He has beat so many worlds and conquered so many things that so many little people know about this character. They only know him as the giant starfish alien guy on purple.
Right.
That's not the big key to this. The big key to this is this humanoid guy that they that tried to take control of, then ended up taking control of them.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the story is at. This is why he is number 2 on my list.
And he would make a good Superman villain.
Absolutely. Darren, who's your number 2?
But cannot beat Darkseid because Darkseid is immortal. My number 2 is the Reverse Flash, and to piggyback off Kevin, I'm going to choose the Eobard Thawne Reverse Flash. The Flash number 139 is where he debuted in September of 1963. He's a metahuman, which is a very unique thing in the Flash universe. I love the idea of metahumans. Can travel faster than light. Of course, the cellular regeneration of the Flash. He can travel through time and dimension, which is a really unique story in comic books. I mean, I felt like they did time travel and dimensional travel very perfectly in this story. He has a speed mirage that he can create, which is super cool. Sonic shockwaves, can generate a vortex, which is crazy if you think about that. So essentially, it's like Mirror Master, can escape anywhere, but literally like anywhere in the known universe. Has unbelievable memory and can absorb your speed, which is really freaky. And can alter age, which is, I mean, I think the fountain of youth. It's like, this guy obviously has many powers, but they're really cool powers that I think are kind of unique to Reverse Flash. Also, too, very cool, you know, he can vibrate molecules and pass through solid objects. So, like, when he has the hand vibration and he goes through your body, I mean, first of all, just threatening, like, with that vibration, like, if you don't talk, I'm going to kill you. I just love it. And, of course, you know, that story of him killing Barry's mother. Also, he's on the mean list because he can travel through time and not only can erase people from existence, he can remake history, which, I mean, is truly like, how could you technically stop him? I mean, this is maybe a villain that was created that's a little too powerful. And I will say one of, if not the best, encapsulations of this story was the Flash season 1. They were able to carry the Reverse Flash through an entire 24 episode season, and I have to say, regardless of how you feel, if it was if you were entertained by it or not, I think they hit all of the necessary story beats of the Reverse Flash story in season 1 of the Flash on CW.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1.
Number
We're number 1? Who's number 1?
Well, number 1 for me was already mentioned by you, Darren, and that is the dictatorial ruler of Apocalypse. Darkseid. Not much more can be said, but Darkseid has the ability to drain the life force out of other godly beings in order to rejuvenate himself and return himself to his full capacity of power. Now that right there is frightening. When you can drain the power of other gods, that shows you that you're no joke.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's true.
Is that it?
That's
concise.
That is
That's
concise.
Darren broke it down pretty good, too.
Yeah.
All right, my number 1, it's a twofer. And that's because I realized I didn't really have... I didn't have a lady on here. And I thought, she's a great villain, but you can't mention her without mentioning her father. And I'm talking about Talia al Ghul and Raj al Ghul. Basically, they come as a package deal. Talia used her feminine wiles to seduce Bruce Wayne and create a son, Damian, and then oftentimes to try to destroy Bruce Wayne using those same feminine wiles, but also did love him and wanted to have a child with him, which did eventually happen. Ra's al Ghul is an international criminal and terrorist mastermind whose ultimate goal is a world in perfect environmental balance. Now, his daughter works hand in hand with him to create this type of environmental balance. They both believe that the best way to achieve this balance is to eliminate most of humanity. Ra's usually tries to assault the world's human populace with a biological weapon, such as genetically engineered virus. He is aided in his quest by the Lazarus Pits, reservoirs of rejuvenating chemicals that restore the dead and dying to life. These pits have granted him a lifespan of several centuries. In fact, when he first appeared in the Batman comics, he was already 600 plus years old.
Wow.
He regards Batman as his worthiest opponent, as does she, Talia, addressing him as detective out of respect for his intellectual brilliance, and has frequently sought to make the Dark Knight as his successor. Also, Talia trying to have a prodigy with him, a son,
She respects
as well.
him greatly.
He's one of the few criminals in Batman's rogues gallery to have deduced his secret identity as Bruce Wayne. Both him and Talia have. They both know him as Bruce Wayne, but they keep it quiet due to the same sense of respect for Batman. For his own part, Batman's opposition to Ra's is complicated by both his own respect for Al Ghul's genius and his attraction to his daughter, Talia, which she, of course, reciprocates. So there's a lot of layers here.
It's very complicated.
He's not a bad guy. She's not a bad girl. They are both trying to do something in this world that needs to be done. And this is a story that's stronger now than it's ever been.
Because that son Damien.
Not only because of the son Damien, but I'm talking in real time. We are going through an unprecedented amount of global warming, of issues that could be caused by global warming for those that don't think it exists. And in which case, reducing what we use and how we use it is going to become vitally important. Now, the way to do it is not Ra's al Ghul's way. It's not to dictate just, this amount of people die. He was basically Thanos before there was Thanos.
Right. Just on a smaller scale.
Right. He was created before Thanos. So it's interesting that, on this smaller scale, that this character is so intelligent and so rich and layered, him and his daughter. And his daughter doesn't skip a beat. She's much like him in a lot of ways, only she's a little more cunning, I would say, even a little more intelligent than her own father. Having literally bested Batman Bruce Wayne by conquering him in the bedroom. But seriously, Ra's al Ghul and Talia al Ghul, they are the number one villains in the DC world for a reason.
Quick question for you. I've never read enough stories with Talia and Ra's al Ghul, but who is the wife or mother of those two? Have they ever talked about that?
It's Shauna al Ghul.
Shauna al Ghul.
I made that up. I don't know.
And a quick poll question for y'all out there that we're going to post on social media. Well, I'm not. They are. Would you prefer we skip 1 week of podcasting about comic books and go straight to a discussion on climate change?
All right, Darren, who's your number one?
My number one is, I happen to think, is the best villain in comics and is my personal favorite too. And that, of course, is the Joker. Batman number 1, April 25th, 1940.
Wow, he broke it down to the actual date of release. Oh my God.
Here's what I think of the Joker.
Tell us, break it down.
And you covered a lot of the things about the comic code, which I appreciate. I love the history of that. But this is one of those villains for me that has transcended from what you might view as a niche market at the time in comic books to pop culture in a way that is just, it's just revolutionary in so many ways to me. Like, the Joker, for me, is not only the most recognized villain probably in comics, but I mean, people that don't even read comics know about the Joker. Like, the Joker is such an ideal match not only for Batman, but is a villain that I feel so many villains have copied, be it in a comic book film or
Carnage.
Yeah, be it in a comic book film or be it in real time, whether it be someone like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. I see elements of the Joker in there. Obviously, yes, he is a little crazy and in some cases can be very one note. you know, especially the Heath Ledger performance, as good as it was definitely one note. No question about it. I didn't see a lot of complexity there. However, I love, of course, the razor tip playing cards, the acid spitting lapel flower, the joy buzzer of death. And if you really need to sum the Joker up, he joined the Injustice Gang and the Injustice League, but he ruined them because he's too crazy for the crazies. And on another note, final note, I love the Killing Joke. What a great animated feature. I really enjoyed it. I went with Donald and our friend Corey. I really dug that a lot. And yeah, that's the Joker for me.
There you go.
All right. And with that, that is our top 10 DC villains. Agree, disagree, let us know in the comments. Please seek us out on YouTube. We're on iTunes. Instagram, where else, Kevin?
Facebook?
Facebook, that's right. And I think that's it right now. We're going to get on some more stuff when it comes up. I don't know what, but we'll just get on it.
And depending on the polls, maybe climate change.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, with that, thank you all for coming out and listening and listening to The Real Sharp Box. And we'll see you
at the comic shop.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.